Since 1983, FAME has helped business and education work for Maine. Contact the authority, the Finance Authority of Maine. You're watching Maine Biz Sunday, Maine's business news source.
In the first of our two segments, we meet two of this year's Women to Watch. Susan MacKay, president of Zeomatrix, a science company in Orono that makes filtration products, and Nan Heald, executive director of Pine Tree Legal Assistance in Portland. Welcome, and thank you for being here, and first of all, congratulations. This is great. I'm always happy to do this show every year, and it's one of those opportunities where I get to talk to the best of the best, so I really appreciate Maine Biz doing that selection process for us. It's great. First of all, for our viewers, Pine Tree Legal Assistance, your headquarter office is in Portland.
That's correct.
And you was founded in 1966. You provide free legal assistance to low-income populations. Shows that you have about 62 employees, and I was just asking you where they're all located, and you said you are statewide, 6 different possible locations, is that correct?
We have offices in Presque Isle, Machias, Bangor, Lewiston, Augusta, and Portland.
Great.
And we have a staff attorney working with the York County Shelter in Sanford.
Okay. Very good. And annual budget in 2009 of $5 million. So you're one of those tiny little nonprofits, I guess, huh?
Well, you know, we feel tiny.
I know.
Compared to the need for our help.
And that's the first question I wanted to ask you, because every week we talk with businesses here and other organizations, and we always say that businesses are interested in 3 things: access to capital, access to market, and access to workforce. If you got those things and a good product, you're probably going to make some money. In terms of capital, for you, you're a nonprofit and primarily rely on public sector funding.
Well, a range of different funding sources. Certainly federal and state grants are important, but we also get contributions from private individuals.
Okay.
We have some fee-for-service work, a range of different things.
Well, that's good. So you're diversifying in that.
We really have to in this economy.
With the fee-for-service, what kind of percentage of your total budget do you think that is?
It's tiny.
Yeah.
It's tiny, just because the people that most need our help are the folks that can't afford to pay for it.
Right.
And we don't want to divert our staff from the core mission. So it's really, it pays some of the bills. So
in terms of that access to capital part of the equation, how much does having to secure those state and federal funds, how much does that drive your business plan?
Oh, it totally drives our business plan because we can't sustain our infrastructure without a really strong mix of different funding sources, and so that's a huge part of my job.
And that's certainly one of the big differences in the leadership challenge for you between private sector law firms and what you do.
That's right. No, demand for services is not the problem. Finding clients, not a problem.
Right. One other question I want to ask you. You mentioned in your profile that will be in the newspaper, in the Maine Biz paper, one of your biggest challenges when you had to lay off 30 employees, I think it was in your 5th year when you were executive director after the 5th year. Talk about that experience, and what did you learn from that you have taken forward?
That I never want to do it again.
Well, and would you say that that's one of the reasons why you pay attention to those funding sources and not being vulnerable again?
Because the people in a small nonprofit that is sort of driven by a core mission, everyone you work with shares those values, and so losing them is like losing a part of yourself.
Yeah.
We have been fortunate. Back then, we were very dependent on just a couple of funding sources. By diversifying, we haven't completely insulated ourselves from those risks, but the risk is much less than it was.
Good. Smart business. Great. I'm going to move on to Susan. Susan, welcome. First of all, you seem very familiar to me. Have we ever met before?
Yes.
Yeah, you were on the program last year. Actually, it was our MTI program, I think, talking about Maine Technology Institution grants, and as your business took advantage of that. Zeomatrix is located in Orono, and you're at the University of Maine Technology Center, is that right?
Well, we're at the incubator facility, the Target Technology Center.
Founded in 2006. Your products are ceramic materials used to create products for alternative fuel production, air and water purification, 4 employees, and a startup cost of $100,000. Is that correct?
Yeah.
More or less. Good. Great. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I guess one of the things I wanted to ask was, in your profile, you talked about the fact that kind of transition from you from pure science to business leader and entrepreneur, too. And talk a little bit about that and how that experience is, how the science part of you gets involved in the business part. How does that inform to both sides?
Well, at this stage of the company, obviously, the science background is sort of a necessity.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's true of any high-tech company. But for me personally, the transition, I mean, I've always been in the private sector, So I've worked for small businesses in the past.
Okay.
So I was able to use some of that. In fact, personally, I was able to bring people onto my advisory board that I'd worked with when I worked previously in Minnesota for a small company. And so I was able to, kind of leverage the skills that I learned and then added on with some entrepreneurial assistance here in the state of Maine to sort of help me over the rough spots and sort of learn how to do all the different facets of running the business. So.
Right. Right. One of the interesting things I saw was a quote that you said, I realize there's a reason people go to business school. I wondered what that reason was, but I guess you're right. No, all those MBAs out there will be glad to hear that.
Yes.
That there's an art to that and a science to that as well.
Yeah. I mean, you can learn it on the job, but it's probably not desirable. You need to have the right sort of consultants and advisors and advice in general. And you get that to a large degree in the state of Maine. There is plenty of infrastructure out there. It's always finding it sometimes can be difficult.
Right, right.
So.
And you participated in Top Gun, is that right?
I did, yeah.
So, you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that was an excellent program started by the MCD, and I did travel for that, as I always like to point out. And that was a really good opportunity last fall where I was able to learn directly from mentors, other successful entrepreneurs in the state of Maine, as well as, it was numerous people who donated their time to come in and work with us and go through sort of business planning, pitching, and just every week there were little nuggets of wisdom passed on, and it was a very worthwhile program.
Yeah, so. Sounds great.
Yeah.
Sounds great. One question I'm going to put out quickly for both of you as we're kind of approaching into this segment is, do you believe that women business leaders and organizational leaders lead differently than men? And if so, how? Yeah, who wants to take that one?
Well, when I first became the director of Pine Tree in 1990, there was an NPR story that came out almost the same week that said, at the time, there was a new study that showed that women like to lead from the center of an organization, whereas men are more comfortable with the hierarchy. And I don't know if that was true then, and I don't know if it's true now, but I know for me, being at the center makes a lot more sense metaphorically than thinking about being at the top of an organizational chart and sort of delegating down.
So does that encourage more collaboration, that kind of piece? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think it does encourage more collaboration, but I see collaboration and persuasion at use by my male counterparts all over the country. So I don't think it's quite that. I think it's also the case that we have to sort of figure out who we are as leaders and then play to those strengths.
Okay. Good. Susan?
Well, that's certainly what I think the common perception is women lead by consensus. But I think that I agree with Nan in that it's really hard to differentiate between women and men, what a style. I mean, there are probably fewer women leaders, and that's changing. But so I think it's hard to make a sort of catch-all statement that women lead differently. I think in a science organization, I don't feel that I lead that differently from the people that I worked for in the past. I think there is a lot of collaboration, and especially in an R&D driven organization where you really have to. No one person has an answer to a scientific problem. It's probably true in a lot of other businesses as well.
Great. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Stick around. We'll be right back with our next 3 Women to Watch for 2010. Stay tuned.
Maine Biz Sunday is brought to you by Bangor Savings Bank, where you can enjoy free ATMs worldwide.